Good evening, free enterprise fans, and welcome to a special kind of stream. Some of you may have noticed that this matchup is something that happened earlier in this week. That is because we're doing something a little bit special today. We have a lot of matches and we can't go and broadcast all of them, but when we see something that comes out as looking very interesting, we decided that we wanted to go and give a little bit of extra spotlight to them. So joining me tonight is Air as we go over and review the race that he had against PK. This was not a broadcasted race, so we'll be going and rerunning it, replaying it for our viewer, for your all of your viewing pleasure, while I go and interview Air as to what some of his decisions were in this race. I hope you all go and enjoy this as much as I do. Air, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. This is definitely a new format. This is something we're trying out to go and again share some of the restream love. There's a lot of races coming on, and not all of them can get rebroadcasted, but we do want to highlight some of the really special ones. So, without further ado, I believe we should go and get this race started. And we see that we do have a Kane start. What were your big thoughts when you saw Kane and Tella at the start?
Oh, when you get the seat, approximately 10 to 15 minutes early, you get a good look at your first characters. Like it kind of formulates like what you're gonna do from the very beginning. It's like you get this very first character, and so it's like, oh, Kane. Kane is a very solid starting character because generally, at least with this kind of flag set, this kind of treasure set, it's pretty easy for him to get equipment to carry your damage for quite a long time. So. Um, Kane is definitely one of the best people you can see up there in your starting character slot, especially on the normal flag sets where Fusuya and Edge are restricted. So from there, seeing Tella's an actually underrated support character. So wasn't too sad to see him either.
That is definitely a very good point, and we are joined by PK, who is the other runner in this race. He was running a little bit behind, so let's get PK's thoughts on that start. Era was definitely very fond of that lovely Kane. How did you feel about it?
Well, I mean, there are certainly worse starting characters for this flag set. And yeah, my apologies, I'm being late for this. I thought it's Monday. Kane, I mean, particularly with these treasure sets. Sorry, I mean, you can find a decent weapon for him and some good armor, and you're through a lot of the early fights at least.
So
Very true.
I don't know why I did this at the beginning. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna get my first objective done by just opening up the thing. And so it's like I was trying to decide what I wanted to actually peek the weapon and armor shops early, just because this is a gated shop.
I watched some of this back, and I saw you do this, and I thought you were considering just entirely fading Baron. Because, I mean, technically, you don't have to do anything else besides that to complete the objective.
Right? But I wasn't gonna like loot the treasure in there, so
Still, if you have the option to get this out of the way and you have a set of objectives which might not require Baron, so just doing that could go and put you in a better position if you say, fine, your last check has to go to the moon and you find Fusoya right up there, you're all set to go down, get your round and go. So it makes a fair amount of sense.
it does. That never crossed my mind.
I mean, as you'll see, there are a lot of potential available options coming up here, but I mean, when you're on a character hunt and you have Baron, it's going to be a tough one to pass up.
So this was one of those to go into the objectives a little bit. There's no boss hunt. The events are, at least, I mean, Giant of Babel is, well, difficult in the sense that it's super high leveled, but you kind of want Darkness Crystal anyway in almost every. So there's nothing particularly trolly, like it's not it's not a boss hunt. A character hunt, I feel like, is quite a bit easier than a boss hunt.
Very true. Character hunts, you only have 13 locations that your character can be hiding in, and you have the dupe, which can go and change the odds slightly in your favor even more. Was there anything that was sticking out to you of, I really hope this isn't awful for me, or everything looked pretty reasonable to you?
At the beginning, everything seemed reasonable. There was one thing that I was kind of scared of, and that was Fu behind Giant. Because, for reasons later.
Well, that certainly sounds tantalizing. And we see that PK is going and hitting Hobbs first, and you're following not too far behind. What convinced you to go to Hobbs over going and hitting Antlion?
The Telecane start, especially with getting the early Ice Brand and Black Belt, which I totally forgot to equip. It was easy enough to check it. It's a good increase in early power, no matter who's here. Generally, the boss isn't too difficult. If it is, you can always come back later. Gives you good information, gives you good power, gets you somebody to just start with.
Yeah,
even if that character is Rydia.
Yeah, even just knowing that you're on a character hunt, and outside of really finding characters, everything else is just pretty much laid out. Considering, once you have the Darkness Crystal, you know where you're gonna go, and the other ones were Fabul and Baron. We basically were at a find a character. So I mean, at this point, I'm like, well, once we get Darkness, there's a high percentage chance that that's going to be go mode. So I'm trying to figure out who my party is going to be.
Yeah, well, this party, you start with Kain, who is a very respectable character, and Rydia is not always the most respected at high levels, though can go and carry you with certain items. After that, Rydia, was there anyone that you're particularly hoping for?
So we both peeked Baron in first, and that's where the Palom was. So we knew we didn't really have to hunt for him. You start out off with a light sword here in Baron, so finding a Cecil early, I was kind of hoping for him, because we had a good weapon for him at the very beginning, and with this particular flag set, 5 random objectives, it's a high probability, not always, but a high probability you end up with Adamant and Legend at some point in the seed, which makes Cecil an incredible attacker.
Yeah, that is definitely very true. Cecil does get some absurdly powerful weapons in this game, so hunting him down and getting him online will certainly give you a big advantage. And both of you definitely following the same route. Anything that you were hoping not to see in Antlion?
Wyvern?
Me personally, there's not that much particularly with the equipment that we already have found on these characters. It's gonna slow this group down. But I would have preferred, no Gauntlet or something, just for the fact that there is no, AoE attacks that we really have that may or may not actually full clear, each wave. I don't trust Tellus shooting like a light one at a group of 3 enemies at this point.
If anything, I've hoped for actually a hard boss, because a hard boss here generally still isn't that hard.
So hoping to go and clear out some of your worst checks and make the rest of the free a bit easier. Though, do you consider that maybe you could get an advantage if you get something very unpleasant in a later location that your opponent might have more trouble with?
I don't really think about that kind of stuff, because you still can only control what you do, and so
this is if you watch, this has been happening to me just repeatedly, in that I cannot get a Grimoire to land. Like the last 4 Cs I've run, it's all just been that, and you're like, well, that's cool.
I saw that Odin.
Yeah, it was like, thanks, Grimoire. Anything else?
You used your Zeus Rage on Odin himself, and I saved, and I didn't use it there. I used the Thor Rage on this, or Zeus Rage on this.
Yeah, I recalled seeing that. I mean, even Calbrana here wasn't that big of a deal with the poison X and the samurai arrows, but it definitely gained you 20, 30 seconds. I think this jump finishes Calbrana.
And then Kane gets his weapon for the rest of
Yep. And then Kane's online.
Because besides maybe the Avenger, the defense sword is arguably Kane's best weapon. Certain of other spears have special properties that make them better for certain fights, but the defense sword is just, I believe, its highest attack power weapon and highest accuracy weapon.
Yeah, outside of vulnerabilities, at least as far as Invent is concerned, it's Kane's.
Yes, it's one attack power lower than the white spear, but it has about 20% better accuracy base, which until you're in the 40s and 50s, that's not really going to be working in your favor.
Also, I had forgotten to go and check the summon there, and when I watched this back, I was really grateful that it was just the mage. It was just the mage summon.
I was very sad.
Yeah, the mage is it's one that you haven't seen. It's also called Mind Flayer in other versions, I think, where you summon one of the lovely Illithid-looking wizards from Final Fantasy 1, and it tries to paralyze and do damage to a target. But if you can't paralyze it, then you can't do damage to it, so it's pretty useless, unfortunately.
Not much value with that showing up. You'll see. I wasn't really sure how I wanted to wrap this, but then Defense Sword kind of made me decide that Baron Inn was an easy place to go and just pick up the Palom for, any future fights for XP. But I did. I have been periodically sticking to the Rivers manifesto of not going and fighting Fabul. And as you'll see in this seed, it nearly came back and bit me. If it wasn't one of the objectives, there's a very decent probability that I don't go there before diving this hook that we end up having.
Well, that certainly sounds exciting, and yeah, skipping Fabul is definitely an interesting choice, just because there is it is an early key item spot. It does refresh your character, so if you can't get through this Baron Inn spot like you did, it can definitely be. I like to go and use it as a refresh point, so it's very easy. And oh my,
yeah,
that is an interesting pickup.
That's why I mentioned it, because that was about to be shown. But it's, I mean, Simbu was away, but I wanted to see if he knew what the probability is of, if you get a hook in one of the early checks, the likelihood that Fabul is actually going to be gaining, an alternate path to the underground.
So I did Fabul early, just because I feel like it's just easy progression in the seeds. The next easiest boss after Hobbs, it's just, I don't feel like you gain that much by trying to do everything in Fabul in one especially since you're still often like treasure hunting this early in the seed. Later on in seeds, generally it's like what your party composition is, how your party power after collecting a certain amount of items. So I often just continue using Fabul just to gather like early treasure.
Which makes a lot of. I was going to say that does make a lot of sense, as I believe that spot also has some rather high experience, because it includes those generals who are expected to run away, just like the Mom spot includes experience for more than you're expected to get, because you're not expected to get the experience for both Mom and her little bomb ads.
Indeed, and I mean, I'll definitely, depending on the party, I'll route that in. But this was one of those where, again, you pull in that defense sword and Kane has some decent gear as far as armor is concerned. You know, even the D-Lunars there weren't that big of a deal in the Baron Inn, so I was kind of riding high.
Yeah, you were doing about, I was seeing 12 to 1300 damage with those jumps. That's definitely a lot of damage for a melee fighter in this time of the seed, so that's definitely a lot of power to have. But now we see a lot of shopping. What are some of the big things you're going and hoping to find when you're doing these big shopping trips?
So a lot of times when in my practice seeds, I didn't do very much shopping, and then it's like later on in this, because at least with this new flag set with the new settings, you start off with a small set of items, but very useful items, like a small set of star veils, a few tents, some cure 2 stuff like that. So actual shopping is kind of less needed, but then all of a sudden we get to the end of the seed, it's like, oh, I ran out of star veils, or oh, I'd really like to have a silk web right about now. And so this time I decided, while I was, doing the world tour, trying to collect treasures, actually do a few shop checks, just looking for some of the more useful items and even weapons and armor.
Definitely understandable.
Yeah, I was, you take your first X amount of treasure, and then if I still don't have a curse ring by then, check a decent amount of these. It's just, knowing Giant is required means you're probably gonna end up doing a D-Machine grind. Just hoping to find, a cursed ring Fu as an anchor was what I was aiming for by the end of this.
That's definitely an understandable goal, as Fu starting at 20 agility, that curse ring brings him down to 5, makes him a very good anchor, and he still has all of his spells, so you don't have to rely on him for carrying you like you do in other parts of the seed, but he can still go and provide a lot of utility, so I definitely understand and appreciate that thought line.
Yeah, and then, there's Palin, there's Rydia. Yeah, typically, especially when I have an exit, I'll check. I'll pop in there just to check that shop. Diamond rings are actually pretty nice to have early game and are relatively cheap. And depending on how much gold I have, there are, a few different items that I'll look for. Obviously, arrows were something I picked up, but with the cane, it's really not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I myself find some... Oh, sorry.
I actually bought some silver rings and, what was it? Silvera? It's Mythal in the remakes, but it's, oh my gosh, I can't remember its name.
Silvera is the name of the original Final Fantasy II US SNES release. But now we see we going up, PK going up ordeals, while Error is... Are you finishing up your shopping, or you're also following up ordeals?
We're not far off, at least at this early point.
Yeah, just picked up my Palom, and then it's like, well, I've got Tella. Let's go do ordeals. I've also got a light sword. I'd still really like to find Cecil. Let's go do ordeals.
Even before going and throwing that magma key down the well, what drove you to do ordeals before working underground?
Tella. As I said during, when we were doing the character intro, Tella's a pretty underrated support, because once you get his full spell list, you got his Berserk, you can do a little spot healing. His wisdom is pretty weak, no matter what you equip him with. But if you can hit something with weakness, it still does a massive amount of damage. So he's just considerably more useful after the ordeals check. And then also with Giant being required, it's like, well, I'm coming up here anyway, because Tella might, if Fu is behind Giant, he's the guy who's going to enable my grind.
Definitely very understandable decisions. And sorry, PK.
Oh, no, I'm just throwing out some brief one-sentence statements. But if you also saw, I picked up some Ether 2s, upping just in anticipation of, having Tella be the primary grind character. Whenever we get up to that required Giant of Babel.
So I see that it seems that you're both prepping very hard for that Tella. When you were in the seed, were you planning on going and the hook from ordeals? I can see that being an interesting.
Yeah, that's just what I was
dilemma
saying
for you.
about not going Baron and Rivers in his strategy not necessarily being helpful.
Yes, I think if you find a hook, you want to go and look everywhere to try and find a way to not go to the hook.
He queued the lit too, unfortunately it didn't hit the wall.
But sorry.
So PK, you may be very amused by this first Grimoire that I'm about to throw.
Oh, nice.
It seems you both have some rather balanced luck on the seed.
It was bizarre. I mean, the only nice thing about Hook, and as you'll see, I did make the wise decision eventually to go check the rest of this, but it was a character check and a shop check. He's, with the Getfu Soya, it's one of those things where you're like, well, I might as well just go see what's going on down here to begin with.
Entirely reasonable, as I failed to go notice this early, but yeah, you can get up to 3 objectives completed on the overworld without too much time. 20 minutes in, and both of you have, well, one of you has them completed, the other one just has them waiting for you to be, just waiting for you. So that was definitely the biggest thought, I'm guessing. Then you're both thinking this comes down to Fu and Darkness.
Yep. And I guess I did go here first, even after getting the hook.
I just feel like Fabul is just a quick enough check that just the double dipping this doesn't take up that much time. It's not like you're going into it. It's not like you're doing Tower Bap where that's a pretty significant climb up and down just for one check. You really want to wait for 2. Sylph Cave's kind of the same way, but just Fabul's just a nice early treasure check on top of it being relatively quick. And a shop check, and there's multiple good reasons to go to Fabul early.
Oh yeah. Well, in this point, part of my primary reason for fading it, if I think I can get through the Baron Inn, is that when you come back to this fight, it's 100% free depending on the levels you have, and with this cane, it was going to be free anyway. So I guess it was required as well. So it wasn't like a great reason to wait out on it any longer.
Definitely a very good choice, and you're well rewarded for it as you do go and get the Magma Key. That is a skipping overworld checks early can be very scary, just because if it's something big, you are way behind. If it's something bad, it's your opponent's probably done it as well. So that definitely goes and makes things pretty. It is, in my opinion, it certainly does feel like a big gamble to skip overworld if you don't need to, though.
Even something like that Antlion, I'd occasionally in practices just routed that out, but I would typically wait until I had to exit, and then I would go do Antlion. But having Defense Sword Cane that early would have been, or not getting that Defense Sword early would have been, a huge time loss just in additional damage that needed to be dealt.
Very much so agreed. I see that Error is going straight to Damsian to go and unlock their hovercraft. I didn't notice earlier, but it looks like neither of you went and really checked for just checked around Damsian rather than going straight to Hobbs and then Antlion Cave.
Looted it. I just haven't been picking up the ship until it's required, or the hovercraft.
I feel like I waffle every time I go my first check to Damsey. It's like, do I get the hovercraft now or do I come back for it later? It's just one of those. It's depends on my mood.
Yeah, that's a very fair thing. I'm a creature of habit, so I'll always unlock it, but I also just I hate leaving that one treasure chest.
So I head to Eblin Cave just to do the character check and shop check, and against my better judgments, to look for a curse string and open up a few treasure.
And as you will note, still no curse rings. I've checked everywhere in the overworld now and still haven't found a curse ring.
Yeah, with S standard, it's any shop that can be around. Where in S Pro, it's in a gated shop, which could be more or less mean because there's fewer shops that you need to look at.
Oh, indeed. I mean, finding or not finding one, it's more just unfortunate because I'll route out searching armor shops after I have a curse string, either from a treasure chest or from a shop. So I'm just, I'm begrudgingly, it's one of those, well, I've already committed to continue searching for this ring, so I don't want to stop now.
There's sunk cost, and then there's the curse ring can be just straight up game-changing item for depending on where you're fighting things, so I can agree with the sentiment to really want to have one, but you are right, there's a lot of cost in searching for them. And now that you've got your hovercraft, I assume you're going to go and check the character checks, and you're checking the waterfall.
I typically go here when I get the hovercraft. Granted, we weren't really boss hunting, but I always feel like it's if I don't do it then Lord knows when I'm actually gonna make it back around there and think of it. Because at least in Mist Village, you end up coming back there once or twice to check package or things along that line.
Slightly disappointed to see Rydia here, but with self-summon, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, and that points out that Rydia is the dupe of the seed, which is pretty interesting.
Now, what I really regretted was getting greedy and checking one last chest.
I did see this, and as much as you were in front of me leading up to that character, I didn't check really any of the additional chests. That light sword was a second light sword, so I assume that was going to pay for a lot of, all of my discretionary spending for a while.
How well did that stand up when you saw those hourglasses?
Not incredibly well. I did a lot of shopping that I probably could have gotten away with less. Light swords were on that, so I don't think I sold any of them there.
Well, those hourglasses, they got a serious price bump for a reason, as they're incredibly strong, and they do go and carry a lot of fights, so I can't blame you for wanting to go and take a lot of shop checks.
That strength ring I forgot to put on for a hot minute, and is, as we'll see later on, I'll mention it then, but the worst, my slowest fight of the entire seed, I think would have potentially been sped up with a little additional strength. That, or, just having a better strategy.
And for my troubles, I got a free strength ring, which I was very not happy to see after buying 2 of them.
Ooh, yeah, that stings a bit because your party, well, when you go and finish Dwarf Castle, you'd go and get another character who could use them. You didn't have two more characters who could use them, though. I don't know if you go and put them on those characters.
I bought the 2 because it's like I don't want to come back for it, and it's just so nice to have, and it's highly likely that I'm going to probably have 2 physical fighters, so I might as well just go ahead and get hashtag still hoping for Cecil.
We'll see how that plays out.
You're making me concerned for the safety of our true hero this seed, or of this game.
Also, I wasn't super upset about the Rydia as well, considering I was at this point looking for somebody that I might slingshot, and with no curse string, which I'm sure I'll say like 30 more times as we commentate on this, but keeping somebody dead in the middle is not the worst, and having it just be a Rydia who, when you already have somebody to cast, is not. It's not somebody that it's not a white mage that you're looking for, or somebody that would help in the interim.
Very fair, and
I just
Error
bought
also
my
grabbed
Ether
me.
2s, expecting a telegrind. A tele-enabled grind, that is.
Yeah, how long were you, you were both going and planning on doing a grind with Tele very early. What, if
Actually,
you
I
found that
grabbed
Darkness
more
Crystal...
Ether 2s here, because I'm like, I know they're here, I might as well just, like, it's looking like it's gonna be Tele. So let's bump that number up a little bit.
At this point, it's just one of those, it's like, well, I mean, I'm thinking about even a Foo grind in Giant, you still might want an Ether 2 or 2. So,
Yep.
because I know how to do the D-Machine grind. I'm not very good at it. I know the theory behind it. I'll just say that.
The D-Machine grind is scary until you go and practice enough times and you realize exactly, oh, I can be the one who goes and gets myself killed. Otherwise, I just need to watch my HP. But it's definitely something that requires a fair amount of practice and balance. But we do see a nice divergence here with PK going underground and Error going to Baron. What drove both of you going to each of those locations?
Well, I had a siren, and I was, still futilely hunting for this curse string, which, as you can see, there's still no curse string. So I figured, okay, we're looking like it's going to be a D machine, so I'm going to go. I'll check to see if there are any more sirens here in the castle and in Tamra, and then I'm just going to go pop this one that I have and, get my team set up to finish Dwarf and Baron in less time than it would have otherwise taken. That's when I found the siren.
I did Baron first because the
And I got you blocked out by the dwarves.
Because since it's a character hunt, it's still one of those. It's like, well, this is now 2 key item checks instead of 1. Well, 3 key item checks instead of. And it's like, well, I have Sylph, but do I really need 2 Rydias and Paladin? Almost anybody I get here is going to be better than one of the Rydias.
That sounded like a very cursed almost.
Well, hindsight is
of course not. I mean, the person here is super useful. Just wait for it.
Oh, I am waiting with bated breath. Oh my, that's a fun-looking Val.
Not too bad because Kane.
True, I keep forgetting that you can actually go and do her mechanics properly when you have Kane.
I actually didn't know whether Virus or a level 3 spell would be better. Also, really regretting not using a tent or something before I came down here because my the Rydia that got the experience from the trap chest doesn't have enough MP to cast Sylph, despite Sylph not actually consuming any MP.
Easy to forget and easy to be punished for as well, it seems.
And here's my first into the dwarf castle. Look at me just getting all set up like this is gonna go. This is gonna go to plan.
With Quake, it's hard to go and think anything won't go to plan, so I'm curious what happens to you here.
There's one obvious guess if anybody wants to make it.
I know what's coming.
besides Error.
Yeah, but you cheated by actually playing the seed already.
In
So here's the
2019,
start of the gas. Yeah, it was a year prior that we actually ran this.
it was a running gag in the Discord about how this race originally was scheduled for 2019 because of
Yeah, when I locked it in, I set 2019 as the date, which was apparently an option.
So you see two rude surprises here. On the right, you see Edward. On the left,
Yeah, that Edward does not seem to go and be really welcomed into your team, and Wyvern does not seem to be very welcoming of your team at all.
And here's me just going, you know what? No, I'm not dealing with this right now. I'll just go do Baron. Like, I'll figure this out later.
Still, you do have the serious advantage of Quake on your team, which is that is a pretty big boon for you.
It is nice, although Wyvern and then this eventual throne fight with Val coming up I mean, Quake could have been an advantage, but as I said, I still haven't put that strength ring on Kane, and I decided that Kane with the defense sword was going to be able to do a lot more damage against this Val wrapped up in the hurricane than he actually could. So if we're doing a retrospective on the seed running here, this Val fight is by far the longest boss fight that I took. Speaking.
Oh, that does not sound very fortunate.
And you know, it's not a high HP spot. It's not a spot that you typically sweat over. Almost any boss there, and running into this, you'll see the damage is less than ideal.
so you may have missed it, but I actually picked the package character.
Because
I got packaged from Baron, and I saw Rosa there, and I decided to.
Package is a pretty long cutscene, so unless you're looking for a boss or that is a character you need, I can definitely understand saying no. Let's not do this.
Also, I accidentally queued up jump on Palom there, which fortunately never made its way to fruition. This is my other. When I'm still hunting for stuff, I went and checked the treasury room over here. Still hoping to pull a curse ring out of nowhere.
That sounds like a very elusive curse string.
I don't know where it was. Maybe I'll locate it at some point in this seed, or maybe not.
The suspense. It's driving me batty. You see that Error was more than willing to gear up both Rydias, giving them tiaras. What's I have strong opinions on.
About this time, I had, almost as like, if I find a darkness crystal real soon, I'm going mage strats. Let's gear these guys. Plus, I have the money for it. And tiara is a super nice piece of equipment.
Yeah, that is probably my favorite piece of gear for mages.
And then after I did all my shopping, it's like I'm still kind of marginal for this spot. I'm gonna go save.
I do the same thing because it's very easy to wipe here to a lot of things, especially at level 20.
Let's see, I went into this at 38, like 22. So I just zerked up Kane. You know, I was like, okay, this will be fine. Check to see if Quake will hit. And he still doesn't have that strength ring on, which I had mentioned before. Like, those multipliers might have helped, but 200 damage is really not doing a Kane.
Yeah, I can see that. Not really.
It's not what we're looking for here, pal.
I actually got my Star Veil off.
Oh, first time.
So good job, Kane.
Let's see how well he does in the next fight, because it's just him going in there.
I have a lot of fun.
Do you get a lot of time to bring up people?
Maybe. I was trying to decide here whether I wanted to dump Iridia or dump Tella for this edge. And I decided to dump one of the Iridias I just geared out.
I can't blame you. Iridia is going to go and be, one, short-term needs. You go from having 1 live character to 2 live characters. That's double. 2, you have 2 melee fighters, which I can also go and respect.
That was a very high reasoning for the 2 alive characters is better than 1.
Yeah, and these fights are...
Really regretting not having that protect ring on Rydia, because I tried doing Rydia first just because Sylph is actually still pretty decent healing and damage.
I'm not going to go and disrespect that. I would definitely see that as being a pretty beneficial thing for my team.
But this Tortoise was having none of it.
Wow, that Tortoise is really got it out for Rydia, but PK does go and get through that Valvella, so I agree that that definitely took a couple minutes.
Yeah, it was painfully long. I almost kamikazed someone against Kane just to get him back, but there's only so much time.
It is a pretty low hit point spot, so it wasn't too bad.
I'd made my bed at that point, and I figured I'll just sleep in it. And I turned down the rose as well.
The super secret hero Edward.
Eddie's hanging out in the Hall of Champions just in case I need him. Word strats, nor would I probably ever attempt them in something like this, but you know, just in case.
I know Edward strats exist on Z. I don't have the. I haven't even attempted to look.
As someone who understands the theory and attempted them, I can understand, because they're definitely not my favorite strats to try and pull off.
Given that we are not in go mode at this point in time, yeah.
And considering you need to go through Giant of Babel, which is you get a lot of experience through those fights, and then you also need to be pretty powerful. It's hard to justify going for Edward strats here anyways, because you'll probably just be at the point where you can kill Zeromus without any fancy strategies.
Yeah. I mean, that's totally why I did it, not because I don't know how to do Edward strats. Oh, in retrospect, unless we got something off the throne, Baron wasn't required. And depending on what key item we pull out of here, at least as far as the character hunt goes, this entire dwarf castle also not required.
We get something out of here.
Oh, now I'm curious because I was gonna after spending so long recovering to get into your gauntlet fight. How are you feeling? Just your
I'm
you
happy
got
I
through
have an
Wyvern.
edge.
Would you say you're keen on that position?
Are we going with hindsight here? I'm happy to have an edge. I'm happy to have gotten some experience on Palom. At least I have Quake now, so that makes things makes me feel a lot, because I actually haven't gone to Tomer yet and looted that siren out of the treasury. But we get something. We get something here.
I am very curious now. Oh my.
So at this point, I'm thinking it's like, do I go back for that Rydia I just kicked out? Or do I keep 2 physical attackers?
That would definitely be a very hard decision for me as well, as your Bahamut's good.
I decided to stew on it a while doing a whole bunch of non-combat things.
That is a decision I can agree with. Actually, PK also went and decided to double his live character count.
This is, this is one where I turned my battle speed down just to ensure that somebody would get through Wyvern, and then to just be treated with the Gauntlet immediately thereafter, which is just, not when you want to have battle speed for.
Yeah, that is incredibly rude.
But yeah, again, the edge I'll take. The edge, definitely having someone else alive is a huge benefit in this situation. But I moved. Kane had a ninja hat on, so I put him on top. So Palom's not in great position to just quake everybody. For whatever reason, all of these bosses just kept wanting to hit Palom as much as possible.
They could sense their doom and targeted the small squishy one.
I don't know about. I think I chose Virus there just to try to get it off before their hits, and I'm not sure if that was. No, that was enough there.
Oh no, did my past stream start dropping frames? I promise I validated Drop Dwarf.
Didn't validate the seed. I'll take that. I'll take that win now. That's fine.
Yeah, it looks like there's a bit of unfortunate past fame dropping, but Fate March, how did you feel about that check?
It's a free key item. I still want a curse string. But there was, looking back at my stream, I did have a small subset of dropped frames, and this may have been the area that it happened.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, and yeah, we can see that these are coming back up now.
I don't know what caused it. I didn't, notice it at the time. I promise I have a local recording.
We'll definitely go and keep that in mind. But the Leviathan.
Yeah, it was yeah, left you right after that.
I get that, and I go, yay, money.
Not even salty about not having it for Baron or anything?
Well, I mean, I'm salty that it was Leviathan and not something else, but...
Very fair.
But, yay, money. Also,
Indeed,
I bought 2 Soma drops, one for Tella and one for my eventual food that I know is eventually going to show up.
That is a good bit of forethought, as getting food. The big difference between 90 and 100 MP and 190 and 200 MP for those characters. That brings you up to 4 nukes or 5 cure 4s or 8 weeks for Fusoya.
This is really where the divergence in our choices begins and primarily ends.
This does seem to be a seed where you don't really get a lot of different options to go. There's these summon bosses are rude, so I can see not really wanting to go and fight many of them, but I see that Error is going and dropping your battle speed. What drove you to try and take some of these fights?
Me thinking better of it.
You considered it. You took it in mind.
It's like, it is Octomam. I do enough hits. It get too slow. I've got a Blink caster. I've got Bahamut. I've got Ether 2s. I could do it. But because you can do it doesn't mean you should. And I thought better of it. Well, I decided that was not the time. Let's go do some other inefficient check, like Sheila 1.
At this point, we're down to Sheila 1 or the Fame Arch checks.
Or Odin.
Fame Arch. Oh, yeah, True to the Throne.
And Top of Tower. You saw me do a key item check there. I think I was checking to see if I had Tower Key.
I was going to say there were 3 left after you got the free chests. Or outside of Top of Tower. So there were 4, and then the Odin Throne made 5. But
also,
that was part of my reasoning for going down here and doing the opposite of what you did.
Also, remember that I haven't spent my Siren yet, so...
Oh, true.
So you've got more levels on
Sirens also haven't shown their face in any shop thus far, including the Evelyn Cave shop.
Or Bacchus's. I know we found one earlier, but...
So I'm going into Underclaw. I have an edge. Just one. Which made up...
I totally forgot I had the Thunderclaw.
This is primarily why you see that I decided to stick around here and see what I can and cannot accomplish.
Yeah, that's Fate March is a scary spot. It's pretty much moon bosses on the earth, so it's hard to go and say this is a great check to go into when it's not something you can go and just stop with hourglasses or laugh at as it's water hacking. You only need to hit 3 times.
Still haven't put that freaking strength ring on. It's one of those things where, every time you get into a fight, you remind yourself, you're like, put that strength ring on after this fight, and then you just get too caught up in everything else. Still no curse ring in the Fame Arch chest, in the Fame Arch shop.
If it makes you feel any better, I just now put my second strength ring on.
Where did you get
On
that
Edge. That was in Land of Summons, actually. That was in the bottom 4 chest.
Oh, you checked those. Okay.
I was still looking for the curse string, and so I was going to exit out of the bosses most likely anyway, so I checked them on the way in. Anyway, to make the people happy, I'm going to music. With the Twin Harp I got off of Sheila 1.
This is me thinking, which one of these 2 bosses should I try first? And we'll see what happens there.
There is definitely that Thunderclaw will go into a lot of work against both of them.
Yeah, that was the thought. that was the general idea.
So that is a lot of checks on both of your parts going and looking for the curse ring, which, unless I'm mistaken, every single armor shop got checked.
Yeah, I mean, at least I've checked all of them.
I didn't check all of them. I left a few of the overworld ones because I was thinking the cursed string was actually only in underground shop. But I guess it could be in any shop. Thanks for telling me that.
In standard, it can be in any shop. There you see, I finally put the strength ring on Kane and then realized that it's going to be better suited on that edge. So you got all of
Edge
4
stole all
seconds
the
with
love.
that equip. Yeah.
Anyway, music time. I'm going to be quiet for the people.
And getting some nice, I believe that's Corneria Castle music.
That'd be correct.
That good old Final Fantasy 1, and we see that Leviathan is proving less kind to PK.
Yep. This was me waffling on do I need to Starveil, or can I get away with eating in Ice 2 on my Zerkers, and obviously that didn't work out. So we're already equipped. Let's go try the other guy.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained, at least.
So it was at this point, after seeing Bahamut do over 5,000 damage on the tankiest magic defense boss in the game, that I decided that I was done stewing. Let's go back to my city. Unfortunately, I got an adamant for my troubles from music. So this was a dead end.
That is definitely unfortunate because I agree that Sheila one is a long check. That's a long walk. And the Twin Harp was also a bit of a long walk that didn't really get you anything. But I'm noticing that you're pretty key item starved in this seed. You have PK is, an hour in almost and has 4. And after going down 2 long checks and a dead end, Error has 6. What were your thoughts when you saw that we have so few key items? Where could they possibly be?
All right, what's the next not great check I can make? I've got the 2 Fame Arch spots, Odin and top of tower. Which unhappy spot do I want to check first?
And that was as I was explaining it, that was my logic in sticking around here and deciding to, I figured these fights were winnable, and it was 2 of the remaining 5 potential key item locations. So I just figured, I think I can do this. It's not going to be super fast, but at least it's 2 places. It's 2 spots in the same location. There are no sirens, so it's at least some decent XP.
I still can't fault you because the Octoman fight is definitely going in your favor at this point. You might have lost your mages, but you've got Blinks up and Edge is steadily chewing through Octomam, and Kane is doing respectable damage as well.
Yeah, that Octomam, the first 40 seconds are going to really dictate whether you've won the fight or not. And yeah, fortunately, he knocked out 2 people I wasn't that interested in keeping alive. I'm not even sure if I had Riddy alive at this point.
Rydia does have 30 HP, but we see Error deciding to choose Tower. What drove you away from Fame March and up Tower?
Fine intervention.
It seemed like the best of multiple bad situations, because I knew Bahamut would do, a fair amount of damage, but I figured it would be... This seemed like the easiest check that I could make. It was the check that I could be most successful with without potentially banging my head against a wall.
Very fair, and as I believe you mentioned before, have you used your Siren yet? I believe you haven't.
No.
Here's my tower key from Octomom. And I do spend a second here trying to decide if I want to take Leviathan on or if I want to go just right over to the tower now that that's 2 checks.
Yeah, I can see that being very tempting, as Leviathan in a sure spot was definitely not very kind to you the first time, and I don't know how many Star Veils you have, but you don't believe 7 is not a terrible number.
I believe we both bought Star Veils in Mysidia.
I
A
had a Bacchus as well. So, you know, I assume that this was relatively free after my quick test of how much the Ice 2s were going to do. It just took, it's just not the fastest fight.
This is the part
It's
where
more
I curse
request
myself.
one of those, is it worth doing this fight? Oh, did you?
This is the part where I curse myself for selling the Blizzard Sword.
There's only so much cursing you really need to be doing to yourself when you have Rydia throwing out 8,000 damage with the Bahamut.
That's fair. The bottom Rydia is pretty stacked. Got a Lilith Rod, got a Tiara, got a Sorcerer Robe, and a Rune Ring. Which I don't know if I remember to put the Rune Ring back on after I put metallic equipment on. Either way, Ruby didn't like what he saw here.
Yeah, you made very quick work of that guy.
And get rewarded for my efforts with a Darkness Crystal.
Yep.
And what were your thoughts when you saw that?
Check Moon character, and then go do Giant immediately. Because at this point, all I'm looking for is food, and I got to do Giant anyway. There's a character locked behind him. If the 3 children, well, I guess Riddy's an adult at this point, but the 3 black mages are a very solid Zeromus fighting team with Nuke. I'm okay taking. I have the Ether 2s. I can do the grind. Kane's a good 4th character for a DPS. Let's just go and let's just go check the Moon character, check the Giant of Babel character, do the grind, get all of that done right now.
And considering your checks remaining, there were Odin Spot and these 2 Feymarch bosses. Do you consider that your opponent would have gone and given them a shot, or do you think your opponent's probably done something similar to you?
I hadn't really thought about it because I was more concerned about.
As you seeing me being rewarded with that life staff for my second Leviathan fight.
I was just, concerned about. It's like, well, I hope this is food. Then go and hope while I'm frantically trying to look up the D-Machine encounter guide because I didn't have it pulled up before. Trying to figure out where it's at. It's like, well, can I do a Google search for it? Is this an image? I know it's in one of the documents. It's on the Free Enterprise Discord, but I don't quite remember which one.
I eventually got to the point where I've just simply put that as a bookmark on my homepage.
Yeah, I
because
have it saved as well. I had it actually open before we started the fight.
I did not have it saved, so I was. And so I am probably in the middle of all of this, cutscene shenanigans. You may see pauses where I'm not moving at all. It's because I'm messing around with my either Discord or web browser trying to find the encounter chart.
This is me. I'm taking these trap chest fights because the idea was maybe I can pull out an Avenger, maybe I can pull out any sort of better sword for Edge. Plus, he already had the Thunderclaw equipped. And not that much comes of it. if you guys don't mind spoilers here in the chat.
Unfortunate, but it's at least not a check that costs a lot of time.
The fights are really it's the Thunderclone in these things. I pulled out. Sorry, Davis. I know you were on the edge of your seat checking to see what I would pull out of these trap chests. I pulled a lot of good items out of this, and a Stardust Rod. Any of a different number of things that could show up here would really, if you fights up, and at this point, giant and we don't have Earth crystals, so the longer the seed goes, the more beneficial it would be to have any of those items.
That power shirt at least looks like it was a decent find for your team, because you're committed on the mage front, while Error, you went full, or PK's committed on the melee front, while Error, you went full mage.
I just kicked the Dragoon out of my party. Yeah, I'm thinking, all right, I've got my anchor Intella. I don't have a curse string, so let's make sure we kill him at the end of the grind fight. And if I somehow forget to kill him at the end of the grind fight, I have an Edward, or perhaps a Sid, or even a Cecil at the end of this giant.
Well, you certainly seem to have a substantial lead, so I am curious how this turns out for you.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how I ended up getting back towards almost entering Zeromus at the same time. I mean, you kept your edge
spoilers.
Throughout, but it yeah, spoiler alert, we both did fight Zeromus at the end of this scene. Yeah, power shirt, nice. Umurisame, Masaman, any of those things would have been equally appreciated.
So, you may have caught me at the beginning of the seed, or near the beginning of this, saying that I wasn't particularly comfortable with the grind. We'll see how this goes.
Oh, I do. We had some time to have some friendly conversation before it started, but you got 2 weak casters. Yeah, we definitely played our giant slightly differently. I'll get into what was going through my mind, as I make my way up there, but we definitely ended up going into the giant with 2, very different teams.
So I've got the chart open, and I take a whole bunch of steps, and it's about this time that I have lost count of how many steps I've actually taken. And then it's like, I don't know where exactly I am on the chart. Let's try this.
So a important tip that I didn't learn until I watched Invenerable's helpful video on this is that to continue using the chart, you have to go to you have to go back from the second room into the first room, and then start counting steps in there. Yeah, I didn't know how to go and count past, all of this, these are the squares that will go and give you a D-machine counter. Here's this weird step chart that goes and tells you 20, 30, all of these. Granted, I still go and skip that step count.
Luckily, my second attempt, I actually got an encounter in the first stream, so I knew exactly what encounter I should go.
Yeah, I very frequently reset until I get one of those, because I still don't like actually counting. I'm terrible at it. But the D Machine grind. You said that you don't have a lot of experience with it. What general thoughts of what you knew going into the fight this time?
Here I'm trying to decide. It's like, well, all right, do I need to equip? After my first miss, it's like, maybe I should start casting spells on these. I have 3 people with virus. At least so I thought. Technically, 5 people with virus, or so I thought.
Oh my.
Like, I should have healed up before I got into this too much.
Yeah, that is definitely an easy mistake to make just because not having full HP makes this much harder.
It's like, all right, I'll give the Palom with a bow and arrow, but I've only got like 8 arrows. Yeah, that's probably enough. Like, oh wait, Middle Video doesn't have virus. Oh, let's punch. Oh wait, I should have been using Sylph. You dumb.
Someone in chat, Jeeves just made that comment. And you see, here I am. This is my tower key. This is my reward from doing both of those Fey March bosses.
Yeah, the life staff is the top one, and nice on the required food if you decide to use them as the white mage, though. I imagine we're going to find something interesting from this tower key.
I mean, there's really only one thing that I can find from here. Well, depending on how long, this grind were to have taken or not have taken. But I mean, I'm not in go mode levels, and as we've seen, because Error's already checked the shop, the Naming Way shop. There are no sirens, so I still have to do some form of grinding. So
did I check the
we'll
Naming Way shop? I don't think I actually checked it.
Or maybe you didn't, but I thought I saw you land once. I wasn't paying close attention because I've already read this story. So I'm just along for the ride.
Oh, and here I go. It's like, well, I need to cast Cure 4 on everyone, and then I single target Cure 4 on Tella instead of. And it's like, well, I'll just use Sylph on the Searcher to heal everyone up a little bit. That'll do it. I got Tella queued for week.
So that was the pass from Tower Key from my Fey March fights.
Well, that definitely gives you a bit of a leg up. What were you thinking when you found that?
I was thinking, after I pulled the Darkest Crystal and the pass, I was thinking to myself, I should not have done that Leviathan fight. Like, Octomom, it's like you got one good thing, like, why try to get a second good thing out of the same place? So, I feel like, okay, that wasn't an absolute waste of time. But when I first started doing these seeds, I was go top of tower like all day, every day, and then it started burning me, and then it's recently obviously made a comeback. So, I'm like, well, this is obviously, we have to be close right now, depending on who the moon character is in my mind. I'm like, if the moon character isn't Fu, then we still have the key item hunt. What you decide to do up on the giant is going to be important. Like, do you need to do a grind? Do you not need to do a grind? Because we still technically, if it's the moon character isn't Fu, then we still have to hunt for the Earth Crystal. Obviously, the moon character was Fu. So basically, when I got to the Fu, I was like, "There's no way Error is, Error, even having done what he did, unless he did Sheila 1 into something and then, or he's maybe 2 or 3 minutes ahead of me, maybe like 4 or 5 minutes because my Val fight was terrible. But like the plus minus at this point, I'm like, we can't be that far away from each other." Because I know Error, knows how to play the game, so we can't be that far away, considering we both have go mode with only doing the giant left.
Well, thank you. Other than I killed the Searcher faster than I wanted to, especially with Tella alive. and not getting to nuke levels or even.
I mean, I'm not saying either of us played this brilliantly, but I mean, we were both. This was a very, very, path-driven seed. There wasn't that much decision-making besides, you doing Sheila 1 and me doing the Fey March. Technically, Baron didn't need to be done, and Dwarf Castle didn't need to be done. So that would have saved, if either of us would have quit that would have really been a difference.
True, you both went and you both had 2 extra checks that the other didn't do. Error had had Sheila 1 and the Twin Harp, while PK, you had both of the Feymarch bosses, and then both of you checked Baron Castle, but did either of you actually go and look at the Odin spot?
Nope.
Either.
So at this point, I know that I'm still well short of my grind. I'm still fairly certain that killing the 2 bosses here isn't going to get me the levels I need for nuke. But I still have that Siren, and I was thinking that maybe 1, maybe 2 encounters on the moon would be all I needed to get nuke on all of the characters. And with Bahamut and seeing the Magus sisters here, having Bahamut was a nice boost.
Yeah, double Bahamut is going to go and do a lot of damage to those AoE, to those sisters who keep that annoying wall up, where normal nuke isn't able to take care of the big one you need, and Quake is good, but not quite as good as Mega Nuke.
This is actually, in retrospect, we're having both of us having access to that Bahamut, but me having gotten rid of both of the Rydias at this point is hurting, because without that Bahamut, as you'll see, I check them before doing any sort of a grind, and I have a Rune Axe and a Mute Knife. So, outside of having a Bahamut spell, my 2 Zerkers would have been much faster, at least at clearing this, than just Quakes would have been. But as you can see, this is just overwhelming power from these Rydias right now.
I think even just that mage vulnerability goes and provides a lot of real damage. Just Mute Knife, and you save a lot of time with the animation time, because you're not going to go get as many turns from the Magus sisters who go through their script. You're not going to get as many animations from Bahamut, who is just very long to go and just hogs the screen, takes up so much time to go and cast.
Hitting for, high 4 digits versus maybe a Quake. I'm just saying, this would typically be advantage Berserkers, but that Bahamut's hitting for, twice the value of anybody's. I'm just saying, it's minimized. It's not, I probably clear them out faster, but
yeah,
it's still, it's much closer than it would be in any other situation, because you can't cast nuke on the middle sister. And that's bonus XP. As Simbu says, there was a part of me that was contemplating just farming them for HP or for XP, given that I had the Zerkers. The items and the amount of, just the amount of hits it's going to take to clear them anyway.
Certainly an understandable thing to go for, as this is a rather high experience spot, and you can, I don't know the HP totals on these characters, but I imagine it's somewhere around 30 and 60,000, or maybe 20 and 40,000. If someone in chat has some better numbers, I'd appreciate knowing those, just because that's a lot of levels for those high-end casters who got pretty close to some of their top tier spells. And we'll see how much this goes and gives you, because I believe you go in at a noticeably lower level.
I decided to skip the grind here. I knew I could still grind afterwards, but I wanted to see what my levels look like, because there's, in my mind right now, I'm thinking, again, I'm only so far behind. I have the pass, which is going to help. I think, at worst I'm tied because I have the pass, but, at best, maybe it's saving me some time. And it's really a question of, I was strongly contemplating at this point just taking the XP from this fight and the CPU fight and just going directly into Zeromus, depending on what my HP looked like after this fight.
Definitely not a bad position, and we see Dark Elf as a second fight, which, what did you think when you saw this error?
I wasn't actually very happy. Because you don't get as much XP out of a Dark Elf fight than you would basically any other.
And error and
I didn't go as far in my grind as I wanted to, so I was hoping it wouldn't hurt me too bad in that that I needed a couple more levels.
Bahamut is just shrieking all over the place. I love it.
And I was actually kind of surprised that I, pushed Dark Elf over that quickly. So if I had known that, I would have queued up a week earlier.
yeah, that was what I was curious at. And I see that while you did get some good experience in that fight, you only got up to the high 30s and mid to high 30s on most of your characters. What were you thinking when you saw that, PK?
This is where I stood. So you'll see. I went and I checked the CPU spot because I was still thinking, maybe it's one of the free fights. We hadn't really seen much as far as free fights went. So if I get Dark Imps here and I can stop them and I can, weak and then Ice 2 and double life glitch, then I'm going right into Zeromus. But as it stands, if I miss a nerf on a Big Bang, nobody's going to be alive. And even if they're alive, it's going to be Zerked Edge, and he's going to drop immediately. So this is when I decide I'm going to do like a mini grind. By mini grind, I mean I have no idea how many levels I'm getting off of any of these dragons. So I'm just going to go like half as long as I usually do. And then I'm going to call that ball game, and I'm just going to go dive Z.
That's definitely understandable. Something that's tripped me up is the fact that while you look like you're closer to the 30s, you actually need a lot more levels after a lot more experience at that point.
Yep. I was fortunate here, off my reset, that I hit one of the tiles where I had the guaranteed fight in the next room. Which, I don't know, there was some streamer who I watched who actually was running the vanilla speed run of this game, who did a very, who you have to do this grind when you're doing the vanilla run of the game. It clarified a lot of things for me.
Yeah, I think there's, in some very advanced runs, there's a step route which guarantees where you're going to go and get your encounter, but
well, it's dependent on what step route you're on. So sometimes you still have to use the map. Sometimes it's perfectly set up where you don't even hit the save point.
That's right, because you have to do a hard reset in as well, so you can't pick your step route for the entire seed.
Yeah. So that was nice. This is one of those where I'm still in my mind, like I don't think I had enough damage at this point, but if I would have just gone like that was where I was in my mind, was this path has been so linear that I know that Error can't be too far ahead or too far behind of me, particularly since the Fame Arch paid out enough by having the pass. So I'm sitting here like, okay, what is enough and what is not enough, because I got to get into this. I got to get into this dark fight like as quick as possible, because there's no way that he's too far behind. At best he's a little behind me, but I know he's not that far behind me. I stalked your stream and watched you run some races. I mean, I know you know what you're doing.
Except now, while I'm sitting here, it's like, all right, the Cecil will be a good anchor. It's like, you've got 13 agility at level 1? That's a little bit more than I'd like. I've got this Edward sitting here. It's like, is this light sword that I equipped you with because I sold the dwarf axe? Is that boosting you that much?
I was fortunate. I got some double life glitches off here. And the life staff at least made Tella's Cure Forest, viable as far as full healing.
Yeah, that's some pretty solid healing from Tella with that life staff going and taking up halfway through. And to get back to Era's point, yes, Cecil starts very fast. His at level 10 Dark Knight, he has 10 agility, which is one of the higher agilities for all of the starting characters. Sid is 9 agility, I think. And Paladin
Maybe
Cecil.
Simba or maybe Baka, you can answer this, but whatever my Tella's level ends up at, I take that Cecil as my anchor. And I don't know if that was faster or slower than just keeping that Tella.
Either way, I was unhappy with it and decided it's like, all right, I know Edward's also reasonably fast, but he's not 13 agility fast, and the black mages aren't exactly speed demons.
Yeah, Paladin has a pretty poor speed growth compared to a lot of other characters. It's if not to go and say this in an odd manner, but if agility mattered more than it currently does, that would probably go and be a point of comparison between him and Rydia, as Rydia is faster than Paladin. Not to mention, Rydia has access to additional weapons that would go and let you manipulate her agility before going to the fight, because you can, you don't have to go and, well, if you're feeling sneaky, you can go and equip them with an agility boosting weapon and switch off it to go and keep that relative agility for the fight. And I see you get a kind of lucky fight here.
So I'm still short nuke on all 3 black mages. So it's like I've got the one siren. I know I probably need more than one fight. So
was this your siren fight?
No.
I knew you had the one. I wasn't sure if this was one or if this was a random encounter.
This was a random encounter. I was hoping I only needed 2 battles here to get nuke on all 3 of them. Which is why I didn't set up a second grind fight. And that's why I was kind of sad that I saw Dark Imp at the CPU spot, because that's less experience than you would normally.
Yeah.
So that's my mini grind there. Relatively comfortable levels, not incredibly comfortable levels, but
you'll still be.
I knew 2 paths diverged, and I didn't take the Rydias, I took the attackers. So Giant required go mode the minute you got Darkness Crystal. I'm sweating already just with the idea of neither of us can be too far away from this Zeromus fight. And obviously I'm not wrong there. I'm just
My first encounter was quick. My second encounter, not so much. Because I about to say, it's like, oh, I might need actually 3 of these. And I know that there's kind of an okay spot to grind on the save point area, but it's not as good as this.
Yeah, that's this. I looked at a lot of the encounters in the Lunar Core, and some of them are either terrible experience, like that D-Bone I believe you kept finding, or they're rather rare to find, like these King Ryus, or they're just completely awful fights, like Blue Dragons.
Sure. I know that this floor is the one that gets recommended for it if you're going to use random encounters to find King Ryus.
Yes, because I think
you don't have anyone to deal Zerk damage, because the trap chest would be fine. If you had a behemoth, as long as you had decent damage going out, you don't want to use spells on those.
No, not unless you can go and do an extraordinary amount of damage, I think.
Bahamut would still probably be okay, but
that's fair.
True, Bahamut would go and exceed the high magic defense of those behemoths, as they are definitely very strong.
So I also knew there were Cure 3s in the Troya, one of the two Troya shops. So I was also leaning on that.
That is a good heads up play, to be entirely honest, as remembering where your Cure 3s are is going into Zeromus with those as backups, definitely a good heads up play.
Definitely, I almost only remember it if it's in the same area as where I'm going through with the pass. But at this point, yeah, I was like, okay, so I have Edge at 2200, Kane's at 2800. They're both gonna have to be zerked, but if a black hole comes out and no one else is alive, I'll at least have Cure 3s.
Yeah, that is definitely an important safety, and that is a good heads-up play to have for Zeromus, as Zeromus is very good at killing people.
Yeah, it's not bad, and this is where I take the Cecil, which in retrospect, I don't know what Telus' agility was, and having heard what Eric just said about Cecil's agility, I'm starting to think that was a suspect decision.
Tell in the 40s probably has around 20 agility, so that's while Paladin Cecil is not good, he's still probably better than the high level Cecil.
I think they both had ninja hats on, so I was like, they're probably going to be RA1. So not a huge difference, but still technically a difference.
Every point matters when it comes to Anchor, so I definitely wouldn't go and fault anyone for taking Tella over, or Cecil over Tella for an Anchor at those levels.
When you have Bacchus as well, you don't really need anyone to cast Berserk, so you're not thinking in any terms of mage. I'm just like on the fly, like maybe this is better. Who had the Cure 3s? But here's the Cure 3s. I'm trying to buy as many Cure 3s as possible.
What is I can do?
Here we go. Here's us literally entering into Zeromus at arguably.
Indeed, and I believe we have a question for our chat. As well, you may know, but we're all going to be very curious as to what lovely sprite you were blessed with, as Scala's provided about 455 of them, I believe. So let's get our Z flags out in chat and get hyped for this finale, as we have a broadcasted race with two runners going into the Zeromus fight less than a minute apart.
And I wanna say thank you, Baka, for putting this on, even though I thought it was tomorrow. Wasn't paying attention, but
surprise.
Yeah.
This was I can't take all the credit. Rivers floated the idea, so I just did a bit of legwork going and finding. Rivers actually did a fair amount of legwork going and finding good matches. So shout out to Rivers for going and really thinking up the idea and proposing it. And thank you to both of you for agreeing to come on and show us off, because I believe this has been rather interesting and entertaining. We'll go and leave it up to chat, but we may do more of these in the future, depending on if we have gaps in our schedule.
I gotta say, I enjoy, to a degree, the retrospective idea of it. Because I think it allows you to spend more time talking about, what your decision-making process was, instead of, trying to watch and determine what's going through these people's minds.
I don't know what's going through my mind.
I'm like, there's no way I beat you in Zero. I'm like, there's if you didn't do the Fey March, then you saved almost as much time as you would have gained by getting the pass. Like, that just saved me if you didn't do the Fey March.
And also, I want to shout out, this is definitely one of my favorite sprites, Trombone Miss. I've only played a little bit of Mega Man Legends, and I know she's in a number of other games, apparently, but this sprite's adorable.
This is the part where I get sad that I missed my first nuke bounce, because I did it slightly too early.
That's very hard. That's very easy to do in this fight, just because it's, depending on how you have your speed set up, you do need to wait one turn for Zeromus to go and unset their vulnerability flag. So I It's very easy to do. That's just kind of normal for me at this point.
This is adorable. If you were to have asked me who it was without having watched this back, I couldn't have told you because I was too busy.
I imagine adrenaline plays a
of it.
lot of a
Yeah.
big part of all this.
So this is the part where I'm half counting damage, but then I lose count. But I know I'm doing lots of good damage.
Yeah, after doing it reflex strats enough and knowing my anchors, I can. If you're just doing reflect damage, the counting does go and at least work for you, where you can just keep reflecting and not need to keep counting.
Just glad that Cecil was the one who got the nuke here.
That definitely seems like a boon for you because, well, reflecting it would be kind of nice, but still going and having extra damage from Cecil is okay.
Level 1 Cecil, I don't even think I equipped him with anything. I was hoping he would hit the floor, or he was just going to throw a Cure 3 on whoever took whatever the nuke was.
I'm fully thinking that I'm going to kill him before this Big Bang.
It's definitely a very close thing to go and get to.
I was mistaken.
Ooh.
Oh wow. I didn't watch this far. Oh, Foo.
So at this point, I'm trying to decide. I know I'm really close. Do I hard cast the nuke? Do I use a life potion on somebody? Do I life 2 somebody? In which is, I decided on life 2, and it's like, do I do the Palom who has the most hit points, or do I do the Rydia who's best geared? In which I do the Palom,
Yeah,
and then
I
I decide I'm really close. I am hard casting a nuke, and then preparing to reset or win.
Alright, that is definitely a gutsy finish, and I wholly approve.
So this is when his done comes in, and I'm glad maybe that you're not playing my audio, because I definitely let out some sort of string of expletives. But now that I've lost after the second Big Bang that goes right into Medio, I Foo is alive. I life 2 Foo. Foo life 2 is Foo. Instead of either of my Zerkers.
That is... I mean, keeping Fu up is definitely important just because he keeps the rest of you alive.
Yeah.
I have...
EG. good win again.
Either way, it was like one of those. It's like, oh no! And I put the protect ring on Fu's like before the fight, just for the reason it's like if I did mess up, he's the way I recover. And then it's like, but his nukes weren't doing that much damage, so it's like if I'm going to direct cast a nuke on Z, I want somebody who's doing a little bit more damage than Fu. In which I don't know whether Simbu was saying it's like, hey, do the direct nuke always, and it's just like, I don't know. It worked out for me.
And I got Big Bang right into rocks.
Oh yeah, I know this situation. There was a race of me going, and more than once I was having Rosa trying to life up a Cecil, and then eventually I had to switch to a Fu because I needed to go and have someone dodge rocks so that I can go and get a life up. And Fu is doing a good job for that.
Yeah. This is why, yep. And here it comes. This is me, like, oh, whoops. I input my first down too soon. Now I'm worried that I'm about to wipe on this because good old Fu decides that, yeah, he's just gonna life to himself.
I completely understand the situation because, I mean, the last seed I did before getting involved in this in the Fabul Gauntlet was the was in the Highway to the Zima zone, one of the elimination matches, and I was in Z when my two other opponents not done and thus eliminated me, and you just lose focus.
Yeah, like I was like, all right, whatever. Like, it's over. It's just like, it only matters so much. Direct cast news. Fu is at Error. If you'll see, Ibach here. But my Zeromus at this point was at, you'll see, he had to have been under whatever one hit from Kane was.
Right. You lost a lot of time just recovering from this, but it's just one of those. It's like you were about maybe 45 seconds to a minute behind me if you were able to just.
If I hit that final one, that was it. So he was less than 3,000 HP.
I've been there as well. That is.
Yeah. But I'd already lost. I'd already lost. So instead of trying for a direct cast nuke or anything else, and already boffing the life 2, it was like, all right, I'll hope that this goes smooth. I'll cure 3 Fu back up in life 2.
I respect the safe play, and I can definitely respect going and getting thrown off by that is a very close race. That is definitely not. There's nothing to be ashamed in either of those races. Yes, you can go and point out saying, like, I've done this better, that better, but there's a lot to go and say, yes, this is good play, and this is something to go and be very happy with. So thank you both for coming out and going through this for our first ever Gauntlet runner review. The Fabul Gauntlet runner review with PK4787 and Error72. Depending on how the matches get scheduled in the future, we'll be looking to do some more of these, I think. Any final thoughts from each of you?
Thanks for having us.
It was a lot of fun. I was glad this one got to be watched, because this was this was a close one, as opposed to when you have a lot of choices and somebody makes them right, it's like a 15-minute difference.
Even closer than the final times would indicate.
That's why I was pointing out the Val fight earlier, because that was maybe an extra 2 minutes, and that would maybe put us really, really close to finishing at the same time.
I mean, a little bit of different RNG on Zeromus, and you don't get a big bang into Medio, and that can take off a couple minutes, because you had to spend a few minutes going and recovering.
It was fun, yeah. It was well run. It was one of those seeds, like I said, where you know that the other person is probably right about exactly where you are. So, we took different strats, which I think made it really interesting. And congratulations again, Error. Best of luck moving forward.
You as well. I certainly wouldn't want to be the 0-1 guy going up against you.
We'll see. Hopefully my draw isn't horrendous, but I'm having a great time either way. So, and thank you again, Baka, and everybody on the restream, Gambit and Dathis.
Yes, thank you both of you for filling in at short notice. This was rather spontaneous, as it seemed like a very interesting idea. And with that, I think we're going to go and be signing off for tonight. We'll go and give the RPG Valkyries a raid, as they are in the middle of their RPG Loves 3 marathon. So let's go and give them our love. So thank you all again for watching. I wish you a great evening. Thank you again, PK and Error, for coming out, and have a great evening, everyone.
Have a good night.
That was fun.